When I arrived home from work and opened the door, the sight before me left me speechless. Alex was sprawled on the living room sofa, holding a phone in his left hand and a cigarette in his right, with ashes scattered all over the floor. Margaret was sitting nearby, holding the hand of a girl I didn't recognize, chatting with her warmly in a way I had never seen before.
Mom, why didn't you let us know you were coming? And where did you get the key?
I looked at the mother and son who had made themselves at home and the mess they had created in the living room. A surge of anger welled up inside me, and I couldn't help but raise my voice. I hated it when people showed up unannounced, and Margaret and Alex were the worst offenders. They often came over without warning and left the place in a state of chaos, with barely any clean space to walk. John was always busy, so it was always up to me to clean up after them. Over time, my resentment grew, and I had countless arguments with John about it. But Margaret and Alex never changed. If anything, they became more brazen.
What are you talking about? Of course, I have a key to my own house. Why are you just standing there? Go cut some fruit.
Margaret's commanding tone made it clear she saw me as nothing more than a servant. I was furious, but with John not home yet and Margaret's domineering nature, not to mention Alex's physical strength, I knew I wouldn't stand a chance in a confrontation. So, I reluctantly put down my bag and headed to the kitchen.
Annie, maybe I should help her.
The girl, Emily, said, smiling at Margaret and starting to get up.
No need. Let her handle it. You have such delicate skin, I'd be heartbroken if you got hurt. If you marry David, I'll take care of all the housework. You won't have to lift a finger.
Margaret's words made me pause in the kitchen, a cold smile forming on my lips. I couldn't help but feel sorry for the naive girl about to fall into their trap. Just when I thought Margaret's deceit couldn't get any worse, her next words shocked me.
Sarah, look at this place. 3 bedrooms, a big balcony, a spacious living room with great lighting. What do you think? Do you like it? David bought it outright. Since he's not married yet, his brother and sister-in-law are staying here for now. But if you marry him, this will be your home.
Margaret was shamelessly claiming that the house I had worked so hard to buy before my marriage belonged to her younger son. I carried the fruit tray to the living room, seething with anger. Emily looked at Margaret, her eyes full of curiosity. She started to rise from her seat.
Annie, maybe I should help her.
Margaret quickly pulled Emily back down, patting her hand gently.
No need, dear. Let her handle it. Your skin is so delicate, I'd be heartbroken if you got hurt. If you marry David, I'll take care of all the housework. You won't have to lift a finger.
In the kitchen, I paused, a cold smile forming on my lips. Margaret's deceit was beyond words, but her next move left me speechless.
Sarah, look at this place. 3 bedrooms, a big balcony, a spacious living room with great lighting. What do you think? Do you like it? David bought it outright. Since he's not married yet, his brother and sister-in-law are staying here for now. But if you marry him, this will be your home.
Margaret was shamelessly claiming the house I had worked so hard to buy was her younger son's. I carried the fruit tray to the living room, seething with anger. The living room was filled with an uneasy tension as Emily hesitated.
Annie, maybe I should help her.
She smiled at Margaret and started to get up.
No need. Let her handle it. You have such delicate skin, I'd be heartbroken if you got hurt.
Margaret patted Emily's hand gently.
If you marry David, I'll take care of all the housework. You won't have to lift a finger.
Her words made me pause in the kitchen, a cold smile forming on my lips.
Sarah, look at this place. 3 bedrooms, a big balcony, a spacious living room with great lighting. What do you think? Do you like it?
Margaret praised the house with enthusiasm.
David bought it outright. Since he's not married yet, his brother and sister-in-law are staying here for now. But if you marry him, this will be your home.
Margaret shamelessly claimed the house I had worked so hard to buy before my marriage belonged to her younger son. I carried the fruit tray to the living room, seething with anger. The naive girl was stunned by my words, standing there in shock for a good while before reacting.
David, didn't you say I was your first love? You liar.
Her face filled with anger. With a loud slap, she gave David a solid smack on the face and then turned and walked away without looking back.
Well done.
Watching her leave so gracefully, I thought she was absolutely amazing.
You wretch, what are you doing? How dare you spout nonsense?
David, clutching his swollen face, yelled at me viciously, his eyes filled with malice.
Lisa, how did I not see before how malicious you are? David is Michael's own brother. What good does it do you to ruin his marriage prospects?
Margaret cursed through gritted teeth, grabbing my hair with such force that it felt like she was ripping my scalp off.
What do you think you're doing? This is all your fault. You all conspired to deceive that girl. Aren't you afraid of retribution?
My words completely enraged David. He rushed over and slapped me hard across the face. After the sharp sound of the slap, I felt dizzy and my ears buzzed incessantly.
John.
Fearing that David and Margaret might actually harm me, I covered my face and turned to John for help.
You brought this on yourself for speaking out of turn.
John's words pierced my heart into pieces.
I think your wife needs some discipline. What are you waiting for? Give her a good beating.
Yes. Brother. If you don't teach this woman a lesson, our brotherly bond ends here.
Lisa, I told you to endure and not meddle. But you wouldn't listen? Now look, you've ruined everything.
John glared at me, full of blame, as if it was all my fault.
John, what do you mean by that? Isn't this your family's fault? A bunch of liars and scum. How could I have been so blind to fall for you?
The more I thought about it, the more I felt it wasn't worth it. I glared at my husband with red eyes.
Lisa, you wretch, shut up.
John cursed and then raised his hand to slap me again. My right cheek, having been slapped twice, went numb with pain. I could barely stand and stumbled to the ground.
You wretch. How dare you speak out? Today, I'm going to teach you a lesson.
Margaret, with her considerable weight, pinned Lisa down, frantically scratching and tearing at her. David soon joined in, smoking a cigarette while kicking and punching her. The ash from his cigarette fell onto the scratches Margaret had inflicted, causing a searing pain that reached her very core.
If you hit me again, I'll call the police.
She struggled to lift her head, glaring at Margaret's fleshy face, threatening them through gritted teeth. She thought this would make them hesitate, but to her horror, the deranged mother and son duo took her phone away.
Quiet, or I might forget.
David taunted, waving her phone in front of her before smashing it to the ground. Lisa watched as her phone shattered, tears slowly rolling down her cheeks, sinking into complete despair. Countless punches and scratches rained down on her, and for a moment, she thought she might not survive their assault. However, they only left her bruised and battered, not going as far as to end her life. They lacked the courage for such an act. Margaret knew Lisa had a significant amount of money and wanted to take it all. After beating her, they tied her to the bed in the bedroom, threatening to withhold food and water unless she gave them all her money. Despite being covered in injuries, Lisa refused to give in to these heartless people, enduring the pain with gritted teeth.
Lisa, I advise you to be sensible. If you don't give us the bank card password, I'll end you.
If you have the guts, kill me and spend the rest of your life in prison.
Lisa glared at David, her eyes full of cold laughter. Despite their violent behavior, she knew Margaret and David were too cowardly to actually kill her.
Lisa, just wait. We'll see if your mouth or your stomach is tougher.
David's face grew darker, and he angrily removed the knife, giving her a hard slap. For the next few days, they kept their word, not giving her a single drop of water or a morsel of food. She was so hungry she felt dizzy, and her lips were cracked and bleeding from dehydration, her throat burning with pain.
Lisa, don't be stubborn. It really pains me to see you like this. If you really don't want to give us the money, just transfer the house to David. Once he has the house, he can find another woman to marry, and Mom won't trouble you anymore.
One evening, Michael, who had been absent for several days, came in with water and food, gently persuading her as he squatted beside her. Looking at his seemingly tender and caring eyes, Lisa found it utterly laughable. She had once thought he was a considerate and kind man with strong principles. Remembering this, she silently shed a tear for her past blindness.
You want the house? It's not impossible.
Lisa said, an idea slowly forming in her mind as she looked at the man in front of her, who was dressed impeccably but was worse than a beast. Emily sat at the edge of her seat, her eyes filled with concern as she watched Margaret.
Annie, maybe I should help her.
No need, dear. Let her handle it. You have such delicate skin, I'd be heartbroken if you got hurt. Pats Emily's hand. If you marry David, I'll take care of all the housework. You won't have to lift a finger.
Margaret's words made me pause in the kitchen. A cold smile formed on my lips, feeling sorry for the naive girl about to fall into their trap. Just when I thought Margaret's deceit couldn't get any worse, her next words shocked me.
Sarah, look at this place. 3 bedrooms, a big balcony, a spacious living room with great lighting. What do you think? Do you like it? David bought it outright. Since he's not married yet, his brother and sister-in-law are staying here for now. But if you marry him, this will be your home.
Margaret was shamelessly claiming that the house I had worked so hard to buy before my marriage belonged to her younger son. I carried the fruit tray to the living room, seething with anger. Seeing my injuries gradually healing, I grew increasingly anxious. I knew that once my injuries were mostly healed, this greedy family would drag me to the property management office to transfer the house ownership. More importantly, once my injuries healed, I would have no evidence to accuse them of mistreatment. If this vile family escaped legal punishment, it would be a grave injustice. I wished I could dig a hole in the wall and crawl out. Fortunately, karma works in mysterious ways, and I did meet someone who could help me dig that hole. One morning, as I was lying in bed, I suddenly heard a loud banging on the door and an enraged voice that sounded vaguely familiar.
David, you scoundrel. How dare you secretly use the money from my card? Give it back to me, or I'll call the police.
A name popped into my head, and I felt a surge of hope, as if I had finally found a savior. Sarah had been deceived by David, and she must be furious, wanting to tear him apart. If I asked her for help, she surely wouldn't refuse. At that moment, this once naive girl became my most reliable ally. With this thought, I threw off the covers and carefully opened the bedroom door. I crouched at the doorway, scanning the surroundings to see where the family members were. To my surprise, the house was empty, not a single person in sight. Thank goodness, even the heavens are helping me. I hadn't expected them all to be gone, and I was overjoyed, rushing towards the door in a panic.
David, you scoundrel. Did you hear me, you jerk?
Sarah's voice grew angrier, and the banging on the door became more intense, as if she wanted to punch a hole through it.
Sarah, please calm down. I'm David's sister-in-law. Can you help me call the police?
I crouched by the door, my voice trembling as I spoke to her from the other side.
What? What's going on?
After you left that day, they blamed me for telling you the truth. They ganged up on me, hurt me, and are now forcing me to transfer the house to David. They won't let me leave otherwise.
I clung to the door, explaining in a panic, afraid that any of them might return suddenly.
This family is too much, absolutely heartless.
Sarah's anger surged again after hearing my words, and she pounded on the door, expressing her indignation on my behalf.
All right, hold on. I'll call the police right now.
Sarah's voice quickly followed, and I heard the sound of her dialing on her phone. Seeing this, a wave of joy surged in my heart, but then I hurriedly pounded on the door to stop her.
Sarah, wait. Don't call the police just yet. I need to gather enough evidence to ensure they receive the punishment they deserve.
I spoke nervously at the door, afraid that Sarah had already made the call.
Isn't that too risky? Maybe I should call the police to get you out first.
Sarah hesitated for a moment, seemingly unwilling to leave me in this hellhole any longer.
No, listen to me. Just wait a bit longer. I need to gather evidence to ensure they face the harshest punishment.
I knew Sarah meant well, and I felt a wave of gratitude, but I was determined not to change my mind. Emily, a young girl with an innocent smile, glanced at Margaret.
Annie, maybe I should help her.
She began to rise, but Margaret swiftly pulled her back down.
No need. Let her handle it. You have such delicate skin, I'd be heartbroken if you got hurt. If you marry David, I'll take care of all the housework. You won't have to lift a finger.
Standing in the kitchen, I felt a cold smile form on my lips. Pity for the naive girl welled up inside me. Margaret's deceit was boundless.
Sarah, look at this place. 3 bedrooms, a big balcony, a spacious living room with great lighting. What do you think? Do you like it? David bought it outright. Since he's not married yet, his brother and sister-in-law are staying here for now. But if you marry him, this will be your home.
Margaret was shamelessly claiming the house I had worked so hard to buy belonged to her younger son. I carried the fruit tray into the living room, seething with anger.
Lisa, don't worry. From now on, I will protect you and never let you suffer any grievances.
I didn't know if my pitiful and innocent appearance finally pricked Michael's conscience, or if he was just acting to try to soothe my wounded heart. He put down his chopsticks, held my hand, and looked at me with full of apology and tenderness.
We will live happily as a family, just like now.
I glanced at him, and the love that once filled my heart was completely gone, replaced only by growing hatred and disgust.
Okay.
I forced a gentle and obedient smile, playing my role flawlessly.
Lisa, how about I move back to the bedroom tonight? The sofa is uncomfortable, and I haven't been able to get any rest for work these past few days.
Michael, deceived by my smile, thought I had really forgiven his family and shamelessly wanted to move back to the bedroom. When I was tied up by them, I hadn't bathed or washed my hair for days, and I smelled terrible. Coupled with not eating or drinking, I was extremely weak and pale. Michael looked at me with disgust and unhesitatingly took his blanket to sleep on the sofa. After I agreed to transfer the house, my health gradually improved, and Michael wanted to move back to the bedroom. Just looking at him made me sick, so I used my injury as an excuse to refuse. I thought he could endure a few more days, but I didn't expect him to be so impatient. Seeing his eager eyes almost burning, I felt so disgusted I could almost vomit.
John, why don't you endure for a couple more days? David's kick seems to have hurt my bones, and it hurts terribly at night. I haven't been able to sleep well these past few nights.
Forcing myself to smile, I put a piece of rib in Michael's bowl, my tone extremely gentle but leaving no room for negotiation.
All right then, I'm really sorry. I'll buy you some medicine for bruises tomorrow.
Hearing my words, Michael's face instantly turned red with shame, and he didn't say anything more, just lowered his head and ate silently.
I'm full. You all take your time.
I couldn't stand being with this hypocritical and heartless family any longer, so I put down my chopsticks and turned back to my room. Back in my room, I lay on the bed, gently stroking the recorder in my hand, closing my eyes and quietly waiting for tomorrow. Tomorrow would be the day the Zhang family faced retribution, and the day I would be reborn. Early the next morning, there was a sudden knock on the door. I knew Sarah had brought the police, so I quickly opened my eyes and sat up.
Who the hell is knocking so early in the morning? Can a man get some sleep?
David, who had come back late last night, was naturally annoyed at being woken up and cursed from his bed. By this time, Sarah had already brought 2 uniformed police officers into the living room.
Where's Lisa? We received a report that you have been confining and mistreating her.
Hearing this, I was so excited I almost stumbled, quickly opening the door and running out.
She's right here. Who's spreading such nonsense? We haven't mistreated her. Look, she's perfectly fine.
Margaret's face turned pale with fear upon hearing the police, and she quickly pulled me in front of them, trembling as she tried to explain. I shot her a cold glance, ruthlessly shook off her hand, and quickly stood next to the police officers.
Thank goodness you're here, officers.
Seeing the 2 burly officers in uniform in front of me, I felt a surge of security, my eyes welling up with emotion.
We received a report that you've been subjected to long-term mistreatment by your husband's family. Is that true?
No, officers, look, I even prepared breakfast for Lisa with fried dough sticks, soy milk, eggs, and everything.
Margaret clung to the officer's sleeve, desperately explaining while looking at me with pleading eyes, hoping I would spare them. Seeing her pitiful appearance, I felt an immense sense of satisfaction.
Yes, that's right. These injuries on me are all thanks to them. They even admitted it themselves. The evidence is all here.
I glanced at Margaret with disdain, then nodded without hesitation and took out a voice recorder from my pocket. The officers examined my injuries, then took the recorder and listened to it.
You're suspected of unlawful confinement and mistreatment, restricting another person's freedom. Please come with us.
After confirming my statements were true, one of the officers immediately took out handcuffs and restrained Margaret.
Who is it? What's all this noise so early in the morning?
David, apparently disturbed by the commotion, came out of his room rubbing his eyes and grumbling. Before he could finish his sentence, the cold handcuffs clicked onto his wrists.
What's going on?
Seeing the police and the handcuffs that seemed to appear out of nowhere, David was instantly panicked, his face turning pale with fear. The officers didn't respond to him, just coldly escorted him out of the house. Michael returned from his morning run and happened to see the police and us waiting for the elevator.
Officers, he's my husband. He's in cahoots with his mother and brother,
I said coldly, looking at the bewildered Michael standing in the elevator. Hearing this, the officers took him to the police station as well. The three of them were soon detained, and I finally breathed a long sigh of relief. After having dinner with Sarah and returning home, I wasted no time packing up all their belongings and throwing them out, thoroughly cleaning the house inside and out. A month later, the court issued its verdict. Margaret and David were sentenced to severe penalties for their egregious mistreatment. Although Michael hadn't physically harmed me, his indifference to his mother and brother's actions made him an accomplice, and he didn't escape legal punishment either. Michael was resentful about me reporting them and sending them to prison, refusing to divorce me and even threatening revenge once he got out, thinking he could intimidate me. But I didn't take his threats seriously at all and immediately filed for divorce in court. In the end, the court not only dissolved my marriage with Michael but also granted me full ownership of the house. After receiving the divorce certificate, I put the house up for sale online and submitted a transfer request at work. Once I received the money from the house sale, I moved to another city. I quickly started a new life in the new city. Fearing that the vengeful family might retaliate against Sarah after their release, I brought her along to the new company as an intern. After all, without her, I might never have escaped the torment from that family.